The 2025 college football season is finally in the books, but we already have a pretty good idea who is favored to win a national title in 2026 and where the Aggies sit on that list.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I am your host, Matt Galatzan. Welcome to Locked On Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Joined by Zach Dimmitt today on this lovely Wednesday. And Zach, we talked yesterday about the college football season being over, the college football playoffs finals with Miami and Indiana, all that good stuff. It just ended, and they're already releasing national title odds for 2026. FanDuel released their odds on Tuesday morning, but we were talking about them here today, and I don't think it's too surprising. We have Ohio State and Notre Dame with the top odds at plus 650. Let me bring this up on the screen actually for the YouTube crowd. Give me one sec to do that. But we have Texas A&M sliding in with the number 8 odds. Ahead of them, we have, like I said, Ohio State, Notre Dame at plus 650, Indiana and Texas. Indiana is at plus 700, Texas at plus 750, Oregon at plus 950, Georgia at plus 1100, LSU plus 1400. I have no idea why they're up there. And then it comes in at the 8th spot, Texas A&M at plus 1,500 odds, ahead of Texas Tech at plus 1,600. Pretty interesting list here, Zach. I think that, I'd have to go back and see if I could find the 2025 odds and see where those stacked up in comparison to where things finished. I'm pretty sure Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, and Penn State were the 4 at the top. 3 of those teams did not make the playoff. And one of them lost in their first playoff game in Ohio State. But just taking a look at this, I think A&M is in a pretty good spot. I would still put them ahead of LSU, even though, Lane Kiffin and the whole portal thing, that guy's not going to win a national title. He never will. He had a chance this year, and he bailed on his team. Screw that guy. But Georgia's in a good spot. I think Oregon might be a little high. Texas and Indiana are probably in good spots. Notre Dame might be a little high for me as well. I think it's pretty clear that most people believe Ohio State is still going to be the number 1 team in the country next year. But number 8 is a pretty good spot for A&M.
Yeah, definitely. Odds, you can't take them too seriously. It is just odds. It's not a definitive indicator of a team's chances to win it all. I don't know what Indiana's chances were at the beginning of this past season, but it certainly wasn't plus 700. They certainly weren't number 3. But A&M in a nice spot. It's clear that, Vegas bettors, have confidence in the Aggies' chances, to potentially make a run. It's going to be tough. There's no doubt about that. I talked about it previously on, yesterday's show that college football is wide open. It was wide open heading into this year, or it felt wide open once the year kind of got underway. And then, once we went to the playoff, it's like, oh man, this is pretty wide open. I think the same thing's going to happen next season. So A&M certainly will have a chance. I think the first step is making the playoff. Now the second step is winning the playoff game. And once you add those things together slowly but surely, you're going to find yourself into national title contention. LSU above A&M, a little bit interesting because I think Lane Kiffin's a good coach. I think LSU is a good program, but will he have them in a better spot than A&M next year? I don't believe so. And A&M is returning a lot of good talent. They didn't lose a lot of, they didn't lose a ton of talent. They lost some significant players, but added a great portal class. I don't see why the Aggies can't do better than LSU next season. I kind of stop it there. You know, A&M's going to have to do a lot to prove that they're a better program than Georgia, than Oregon, even than Texas. I know Texas didn't match their preseason expectations. The Aggies have to beat the Longhorns first before they can, consider themselves as a higher, national title contender than the Longhorns. I know that Texas did make the playoff, but A&M's got to get over that, that hump because that prevented them from making the SEC championship game 2 years in a row, and that's got to be a major thing that the Aggies need to check off on their list when it comes to things they need to accomplish over the next couple of years. So yeah, A&M's in a good spot. Texas Tech right behind them. I don't have a lot of faith in the Red Raiders moving forward, but we'll see what happens. They got a lot of oil money.
Well, I don't know about that, but it is very hard to predict these things for sure. I mean, I just found the odds from last year, and of the top 11 teams, only 5 of them made the college football playoff. Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia. Indiana wasn't on that list. Miami wasn't on that list. Texas A&M wasn't on that list. I mean, who else made the playoff that we were talking? Oklahoma wasn't on that list. So it's an inexact science, but it gives you at least a little bit of a barometer for how people are feeling about these odds and about these teams. LSU, I hope, is a train wreck. I cannot stand them, especially now that they have Lane Kiffin. So if it was me, I wouldn't even put them on here at all. Other than that, I think that this is a pretty good one. Auburn is strikingly high to me.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Florida also higher than I would have expected. Right below Texas Tech on this list is Miami, by the way. I couldn't get the full screenshot to fit on the screen, but they are right below. And then below Florida, it doesn't matter. We're not going to get that low. So it does. Texas A&M is going to be in a good spot next year. They got a lot of returning talent, all that good stuff. If you're confident in your Aggies, go to FanDuel and place your ad or your bet on Texas A&M to win the national title at plus 1,500. Hey, bet $100, win 1,500. Seems like a good deal to me. If you can pull it off, if the Aggies can pull it off, we'll see. But if they're going to do that, they may need to. A lot of teams are going to need to kind of change the way that they do things, and maybe Indiana is the model for that. And we'll talk about what exactly I mean by that next here on Locked On Aggies. The college football playoff is here. Well, it's actually over. And FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoff, because right now, college football playoff game day, FanDuel users can get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You can use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. Ride the favorite when you think your team controls the matchup. Take a shot on the underdog when you feel the upset coming, or build a parlay around the players and moments you think decide the game. Then you apply that profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays you instantly, which is good for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get on the action all playoff long, so visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. All right, so Indiana just went on a ridiculous run, 16-0. First time a team has gone 16-0 since 1894 Yale. That's how good they were. Unbelievable job. Complete rebuild masterclass by Curt Cignetti in just a couple years in Bloomington. I hate Indiana, but they were able to get it done, and they provided a very interesting model for how to do it. For the longest time, it was recruit all the 5 stars you can and have the most talent on the field and, let the chips fall where they may. Indiana did things differently. What they did is they went out and they got a lot of experience, a lot of players who have played a lot of football. The average age of their roster this season was 23 years old. That is just a hair younger than the Green Bay Packers. That's how old this team was.
Wow.
Which is unbelievable when you consider we're playing college football. But also, the coaching was obviously unbelievable. They were execution monsters all year long. There was no way you were going to outwork or out execute this team on the field, and that is why they won a national title. It was culture, it was experience, and it was execution, and that is apparently the new blueprint for what we are looking for in a college football playoff title contender. Miami had their chances on Monday, and they kept shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and the turnover from Carson Beck and all those different things. Indiana was not making those mistakes, and that is what we're looking at here today. Did they start a new trend on how to assemble a college football national title contending roster? And I got a graphic here from Twitter, and it's pretty evident that teams are now looking at this and saying, okay, we need to add more experience to our roster. So an Ohio State account on Twitter went out and compiled all of this data, and it shows you the top 15 teams in terms of their incoming average age on their roster from the portal and their outgoing average age in the portal on their roster. And it's pretty alarming that so many of these teams are moving toward more experienced rosters rather than just raw talent. Ohio State, it sits at number 1 with a net shift of 1.6 years of age on average. Older. Penn State is at number 2 with 1.2 years older. Indiana at number 3. They're going to be even older last year. This one says this is just going to make their roster even more experienced. They're going to be losing some players, but whatever. Kentucky, a full year older. Virginia Tech, almost a year. A&M comes in at number 8. The average roster age is going to be half a year older. That's not much, but you look at some of these top teams like Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, and even Kentucky, and you can see that these teams are really trying to assemble more experience and get more real experience on that roster. And I think that this might be the way that we should go if we're trying to compete for a national title. That's a start. That's part of it, but also the execution and the coaching and the veracity that Indiana played with is also a major deal. But this is certainly a very interesting trend that we're starting to see in college football.
Yeah, when you look at Ohio State, especially at number 1, if the formula truly is getting older, and they're number 1 at doing so far, they have no problem adding raw talent. So you add that with getting older. I mean, if that's really the formula, the Buckeyes are going to have some success next year, that's for sure. But it remains to be seen exactly how that all plays out. You mentioned with A&M half a year older, that may not seem like a lot, but across the board, if you add guys that have even just one more year of experience, have a few more, games of experience under their belt, that can make all the difference. And I think it will make the difference for A&M. It's not that A&M was young this past season, but when you retain some important pieces, yes, you lose a lot of key faces, of course, but not too many, not as many as some of these other teams have lost. I think that'll make a big difference for A&M. We'll see what happens. A&M has the raw talent, and now they have the experience. Now they got to put it all together. Of course, coaching is a big deal as well, like we saw with Indiana. And I think Mike Elko's done a good job of that as well when it comes to the coaching staff. And so we just got to wait and see. It's a long time until the next season begins. But I understand there's questions about Marcel Reed, but he's another year experience now. I have all the faith in the world that he can still lead this team back to the college football playoff. I know there were some hiccups there at the end of the year, but like we saw with Indiana, a lot of these guys were under recruited. Didn't get a lot of playing time at their first or second schools, but because of their experience and their age, it was a little bit easier for them to perform on some of these bigger stages. Of course, they're talented as well. There's no doubt about that. I just think that experience and age is obviously going to be a big factor for many teams around the country, A&M included. And you know, there's no reason why the Aggies can't make that a formula of theirs if they want to make it back to the college football playoff and find success there, just like Indiana did. I know not every team's going to beat Indiana the way they kind of went on the Disney movie like run, but the formula's there, and that graphic certainly is interesting when you look at it like that. I certainly couldn't put together that graphic, figuring out the ages of all the guys, figuring out the difference in age. So credit to the whoever put that together, because it's super interesting about where things might stand in college football moving forward.
Yeah, shout out to Brian Buckeye Stats on Twitter at Brian C. Walton 78. That had to be a painstaking undertaking right there to compile all that data. But you know, I think that part of the reason that this Indiana team was so experienced and so good was because a lot of their top players came over from James Madison, and they had been with Kurt Signetti for 4 or 5 years. I mean, they only had like 10 4-star recruits on the roster, no 5 stars. So it does seem like there's going to be a little bit of a shift. That doesn't mean that Texas A&M is going to stop recruiting top talent. That doesn't mean they're going to stop signing top 10 classes. You may just see a different calculus in how these classes are starting to be assembled, whether that's less guys in recruiting and more guys in the portal, like something like 17 to 20 players in a signing class and 10 to 15 guys in the portal every year. Whatever that ends up looking like, things are going to be different in college football. And this, whatever Indiana was able to do this year, is probably going to do for college football what, you know, other trend-setting things have done in the past, like changing the way you run your offense from a wishbone to a spread or whatever it is. Indiana has done something different. It has been successful, and I would not be surprised to see a lot of other teams follow what the blueprint that they laid, including Texas A&M. They've already increased the age of their roster via the portal. Now we'll see how they handle that going forward. But when we come back next, we are going to switch gears into some college basketball, buckyball. Texas A&M has a game tonight against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We're going to talk a little bit about that and how far we think this A&M team is capable of going. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. Just a quick shout out to our loyal listeners. Thank you so much for making Locked On Aggies your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. In your own access, and you get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Aggies compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast platform. An invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of Locked On Aggies. I will be in there as well if you want to come give me a shout and you know, talk Aggies football, Aggies basketball, whatever you want to talk. So go to lockedonaggies.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more about that. Zach, not the biggest game in the world tonight, but it is an SEC game. Texas A&M is taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Texas A&M is also coming off of a big win against the Texas Longhorns recently. They are now sitting at, I believe, 14-4 on the season.
Yep.
Always tough to go into Austin and win if you're Texas A&M, because that crowd just gets a little bit more amped up. So props to Bucky McMillan and the rest of that team for overcoming in the second half and getting that win. 74-70, I believe, was the final score, wasn't it? And
Yes.
you know, it kind of played out the way we thought it was going to play out. Rashawn A.G. had a big game because Texas cannot defend that 4 spot. And therefore, Cam Heide, pretty much a big nothing burger from him, only 3 points in that game. So that gives Texas A&M some momentum heading into this Mississippi State game. And in my opinion, it should be another really good opportunity for a win here for the Aggies.
You know, definitely a good opportunity for a win. The schedule is going to get a little bit tougher for A&M after this upcoming weekend. You know, you have 2 home games against Mississippi State, South Carolina, 2 of the lower tier SEC teams. But Mississippi State a little bit pesky. They battled with Alabama. I believe it was like 2 games ago. They battled with the Crimson Tide throughout most of that game. Then Alabama kind of pulled away at the end. But Mississippi State beat Texas in overtime in Austin. So I'm not saying the Aggies will lose to Mississippi State, but they certainly can't underrate any of these SEC teams, especially when you come off a really big emotional win and against Texas. You don't want to have a letdown because Josh Hubbard from Mississippi State, he is absolutely elite when it comes to shooting the three ball. He gets super hot, and it's hard to slow him down. But A&M, I was covering that game in Austin, and watching A&M's defense against Texas. It was very impressive to see the way the Aggies shut down the Longhorns. The final score, was 4 points, but the Longhorns kind of just made a bunch of shots there at the end to make it close, make it a little bit more interesting. But A&M dominated that second half against a Texas team that is offensive minded, and they shut them down. So I think the same thing can happen against Mississippi State tonight. If you shut down Josh Hubbard, you're going to find success. And then right after that, on Saturday they play South Carolina. But it gets kind of tough. We're talking about how far can Texas A&M basketball go. Certainly they're in the field right now. When you look at the NCAA tournament, it's pretty crazy. We're already over halfway done with the basketball season. It's really flown by, but there's still so many games left. After South Carolina on Saturday, you go to Georgia, which is the Bulldogs are ranked 21 right now. You go to number 17 Alabama, host number 16 Florida. The Gators have been on an absolute tear. I mean, they're the defending national champions after all, but they got off to kind of a slow start this year, and they've really bounced back well. A few of the other games coming up, in February. You host Missouri, you go to Vanderbilt, and I'm not going to look too far ahead after that. But really tough stretch coming up for A&M. It's going to say a lot about this team. Once you get to a certain win total, and you get quality, you make some of those wins become quality wins. You kind of lock yourself in to the NCAA tournament, regardless of what your seeding is. And so the Aggies don't really have a ton of bad losses. I know they lost in Stillwater to Oklahoma State. They got blown out that game, lost at home to UCF. Those are two solid teams. You lose in overtime to SMU and Tennessee. The Aggies don't have any bad losses on their schedule. They don't have anything really bringing them down. Their resume is really solid. And if they can add a few more resume building wins, you're going to see them be locked into the SEC or the NCAA tournament in not too long. So, once they make it there, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen in March, but I think it's tough not having Mackenzie Mbako for the rest of the season. I get that, but the Aggies have a really talented roster, a versatile roster. I know Rayshon Agee, is the driving force, but man, Rylan Griffin, what he was able to do against Texas, if you can get those kind of performances, from Ruben Dominguez as well throughout the rest of the year. There's not one guy that the Aggies need to always lean on. They have multiple weapons, and so I think that can be, a major factor for them in March. They play really, really tight defense. They have elite offense. So yeah, I have faith in this A&M team. There's still so much season to go when it comes to saying how far they can go in March Madness. We just got to wait and see what happens. It's still tons of games left on the resume and left on the schedule. But yeah, I got a lot of confidence in this team. I got a lot of confidence in Bucky McMillan, that's for sure.
Yeah, I do too. And part of that is because, they already have some really good quality wins on their schedule. Part of that is because I love the way this team plays on both ends of the floor. But there still is a lot of way to go in this thing. Currently, Fielding the 68 has them as a 9 seed, I believe, in the Midwest region, which is a solid spot to be. You have an opportunity to move up. And here's the key part of the schedule for me, Zach. After Mississippi State and South Carolina, 4 out of your next 5 games after that are against ranked opponents, with going to Georgia, going to Alabama. You get Florida in College Station, then you have to travel to Vanderbilt. If Texas A&M can go 2-2 over that stretch, I think that they're going to have a much, much better, we're going to have a much better view of what this team is going to be in the postseason, because that's 4 really quality teams that are going to be really tough outs. And if you can beat a couple of them, then it kind of shows how far Bucky McMillan has taken this team since really taking over late in the process of last offseason after Buzz Williams left this team out in the cold for Maryland. So really impressive job by him. And this is also the type of offense, at least in my opinion, that is really built for March Madness, because if you get hot offensively in March in that tournament, you can go very, very far. Ruben Dominguez is the kind of guy that, could be a March Madness star.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
So a lot of good things to look forward to for this Texas A&M team. We'll have a lot better idea of who they are as a basketball team after Valentine's Day when they play Vanderbilt. But that's going to do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Aggies today. Tomorrow we are going to get into some more college football, some transfer portal stuff still going on because of this national title. This national title portal window. Players are still entering the portal after the Friday deadline, the 48-hour period, and all that. So we'll get into that and probably some more basketball as well. So make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Aggies so you get all the latest episodes. You can find us on X and TikTok at Locked On Aggies. You can find me on X at Matt Galatzan, find Zach on X at Zach Dimmitt 7. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Aggies ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonaggies.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Football, and we will see you next time.